Welcome to this meeting of council. Before we go any further, I'll hand straight over to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Price. Councillors have received a request from Councillor Horn, who's not yet joined the meeting, but that she be able to join the meeting by Zoom. So under 26, code section 26 of the governance rules does provide that if she makes a request, it should be at least 4 hours prior to the meeting. I was advised less than 4 hours prior to the meeting that she had car troubles and was unable to make it all the way over to Beechworth. So she's asked for permission to join by Zoom, and that would require a motion of council to approve her request to join by Zoom.
So councillors, can I have a motion that we allow Councillor Horn to participate in tonight's council meeting by Zoom? Councillor Horn, you're happy to move that motion? Sorry, Councillor Gold, you're happy to move that motion?
I'm happy to move the motion.
I'm happy to second.
And Councillor Shepherd, you're happy to second? I'll put it to the vote that Councillor Horn be allowed to participate in this meeting by Zoom. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now just wait for Councillor Horn to join the meeting. And for those in the gallery, she'll be a floating head behind you on that screen there. Councillor Horn, I'll just confirm you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Okay, we'll begin the meeting. Welcome to this meeting of council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do we have any apologies or leaves of absence? None. Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest, and Councillor Shepherd, we have 2 conflicts of interest. Would you like to announce those?
Yes, I have a material conflict of interest with item 12.3 because a close family member is a member of the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre Committee. And I also have a material conflict of interest with item 13.6 as a close family member has submitted an expression of interest for this item.
So Councillor Shepherd, when we arrive at those items, I'll get you to announce that conflict of interest and leave the room while we conduct that debate. Are there any other declarations of conflict of interest for the meeting tonight? No. We'll now go to open forum. The first set of questions is from Peter Twigg. Can I just confirm that Peter's in the gallery? And yes, I can see Peter. Question 1, when you submit a question to the open forum, you are required to either attend the meeting in person or have a proxy who will attend in your absence. When you live some distance from Beechworth, like I do in Rutherglen, you are faced with a 90-kilometre return trip. During the winter months, you are driving in the dark along steep forested roads, hoping that Skippy and his mates aren't out for a stroll. When your question is responded to, you have no right of reply, so you just have to remain seated, smile, and assume the role of a notable Enid Blyton character. I'm sure that a number of people who would like to ask a question at the open forum don't because of this rule. The question is, what is the purpose of this draconian rule? CEO Trevorino.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I'll pass on answering the draconian part of that question, but the simple answer is that the open forum is designed, I guess, stimulate this. There's lots of opportunities to contact council and get questions asked and answered. So there's a lot of different ways that can be done. You can write directly to the mayor, write directly to the CEO, and get answers answered, get questions answered. The open forum, it could potentially become unmanageable if we get people who are able just to write an email to us and then have those questions asked and read out at council meetings without any accountability for those people to come along and actually join the meetings or attend the meetings to hear the answers. So we could find a situation where a whole range of disputes or inquiries or any inquiry of any large or small, if that's able to be asked at a council meeting and not people having to attend, then that can be used and abused over time. So for the proper functioning of a council meeting, we need to have that rule in place to discourage that sort of abuse of the process.
The second question, the business case for the Rutherglen Wine Walk Cycle Trail, now known as Rutherglen Loops, states the following in the executive summary. The trail must offer a distinctive experience that stands out from its competitors. The 1.6 kilometre link along Graham's Lane from Colleen's Road to Jacks Road is to now be an on-road trail because of environmental reasons. Cyclists and walkers who wish to take the shortest route to Andrew Buller's, Stanton and Colleen, Campbell's, Buller's and Lake Moodamere wineries will now have to ride or walk along a muddied and rutted road in the wetter months to access these wineries. The question, will the Graham's Lane link now be highlighted as an example of the trail offering a distinctive experience that stands out from its competitors? The Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thank you. Peter, your comments prior to the question suggested, in your opinion, this section would be a muddied and rutted road in the winter months. So your question is, would this section be highlighted as a distinctive experience? So certainly not for the reasons you've suggested. But any marketing of the trails will likely focus on the broader offering of the trails and not individual sections.
The third question, changing the trail along Graham's Lane from an off-road trail to an on-road trail will now result in savings in excess of $300,000 based on the trail construction costs detailed in the business case. The question, will these savings be used to offset overruns for other sections of the trail? The Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thank you. So the business case for this project, including cost estimates, was developed in 2020. Since that time, and as we've progressed through the design and various approvals, a number of things have changed, including construction costs. So we are managing a total project within a total project budget of just over $5.1 million, and there will be a number of cost variances on individual sections. So a saving against the cost estimate on one section, such as Graham's Lane, will need to be offset by, or will be offset by higher costs on other sections.
The second set of questions are from Christine Stewart. Can I just confirm, is Christine in the gallery? Sorry, sir, are you Christine Stewart? Okay. So the background is at just over $11 million, Corowa Council delivered a comprehensive facility including a 50-metre outdoor pool, splash park, 20-metre paddle pool, cafe and a 25-metre indoor heated swimming pool. Given this precedent, it's reasonable to expect that a 25-metre indoor heated pool could be built for no more than $8 million. However, at the Council's meeting on the 14th of May 2024, Elizabeth Kingdon was informed by CEO Trevor Ireno that heated pools are extremely expensive and grant programs are rarely provide funding for pools, with the mention of potential state government funding of up to $2 million. The federal government has the Growing Regions program that provides grants from $500,000 to $15 million. It is hoped that Indigo Council access this program with round 2 commencing in September this year. Over many years, different federal government programs have funded swimming pools. The question is, will the elected councillors instruct the council CEO to proactively pursue grant funding opportunities for a heated indoor swimming pool that will benefit the entire Indigo community? The CEO, Trevor Ireno.
Thank you, Mayor Price. There's lots of answers to this, but I'll try to keep it tight and punchy. As I explained in May, Council has addressed this question. It did so in December 2021, where a feasibility study was considered by Council. They came up with various possibilities, various options. One of those options which it chose to adopt in terms of asking the CEO to advocate for was what it called at the time option 2 stage 1, which was a $10 million option, which was to rebuild the pool as it currently was and not to have a heated pool. The heated pools versions were more expensive than that. That study is now a number of years old. It had cost estimates in that feasibility study, so I don't dispute those cost estimates. And they thought that the cost would be at least $10 million for a basic pool. I think it spoke about $14 to $18 million for a heated pool, let alone the operating costs. I would suspect that price would be higher now, not lower. I can't comment on Corridors and what it cost to build theirs, and I can't comment on the differences between the two. But notwithstanding all of that, I have continued to lobby and advocate wherever I could for funding for a pool. But can I say the bigger issue is not so much whether or not we can afford a heated pool or not for Beechworth. The bigger issue is, can we afford to replace all of our pools when they reach the end of their life? And we'll be looking at something like $40 to $50 million to replace all of our pools, and that'll be the bigger challenge for council in the future. And that issue I have put to a number of state and federal government agencies about how they will fund pools in the future, because as I've said before, the funding streams that are available at the moment do not adequately cover pools. There's not much money around for them. The most we can get is $2 million, I think, as I said before, with one of the state sport and rec grants ones. So that's where we stand. There was a discussion there about what could be put in for the Growing Regions program. Our experience tells us that, yes, we could with some of those, but pools just don't score very highly, and it's almost certainly they wouldn't get up. So we be very strategic about which grants we apply for, which ones have got a high likelihood of getting up. And our experience tells us that pools generally do not get up with those grant programs. So they're not well supported. So the longer term issues for all of us is how do we fund the replacement of the basic pools in the longer term, and that's what we should really focus our attention on going forward. Sorry, can I just a little bit more then? We do have funding in the budget and with a grant to do an aquatics facilities strategy in the next 12 months. So there's another opportunity for us to revisit that decision from 3 or 4 years ago. So there'll be more work being done on that, so that'll be an opportunity to reconsider that whole pools issue. And I'd also encourage the questioner too to make a submission through the upcoming council plan and community vision process, and to see if we get enough people then to, if they have a vision for a pool, then let the next council consider whether or not it's a priority for the next council.
The third set of questions are from Robin McLeish, and I can confirm that Robin is in the gallery. There's an introductory statement. The climate change policy is on tonight's agenda. Council has established our climate action on its website, where it lists what it is doing to combat climate change, but it does not list any action to be taken for landfill sites. Council acknowledged responsibility for the 4 closed landfill sites in the Shire in 2009 and imposed a special charge on all ratepayers to provide funds for their rehabilitation. Landfill sites are a potential source of methane gas generated by decomposing garbage that has been deposited in the closed sites. Methane caused significant atmospheric warming, with a leak of 1 tonne of methane equivalent to emitting 82.5 tonnes of carbon dioxide. Council has been monitoring gas levels at all 4 sites and should now be able to determine what action will be taken with the sites. The Environmental Protection Authority, the EPA, has issued a new standard to be used to cap closed sites, and Council has collected more than sufficient funds to carry out the necessary rehabilitation. Question 1, will Council now provide details of the tests that have been carried out to establish A, if 1 or more of the sites must be capped, B, if sites that are not generating methane require capping? The Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thanks, Robin. Look, I'm sure we can provide some details of the testing, but I'm concerned that the response may be not as straightforward as it seems. So I will take the question on notice and follow up with a response outside of this meeting.
The second question, if the EPA requires the sites to be capped, when will Council commence the work required? Completion of the work will see a reduction in rates with the removal of funds currently collected for rehabilitation work. The Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thank you again. So Council continues to work with the EPA in relation to closed landfills. Currently, there are no definite plans for capping at any of the sites, so there are no commencement dates that can be reported at this time.
And the third question, the introductory statement. At the most recent council meeting, the Director for Infrastructure sought to explain the $1 million project that the Tourism Northeast had obtained for the railway precinct, stating that the Beechworth Railway Precinct toilets are not a specific requirement of that funding. However, the plan of the precinct that T&E has displayed shows a new toilet block adjacent to the rail shed, and there is no note to indicate that it is not part of the project. Furthermore, T&E has provided a project update on the Indigo Shire website that identifies a new toilet block as part of the project. It seems that there is confusion between the council and T&E, which is understandable as T&E has a structure that permits it to deny access to its grant application where the specific information for the project is reported. This is an unacceptable situation, with council allowing T&E to take over the tourism activities for our shire and effectively shutting the community out, while at the same time retaining a $758,000 budget for the in-house tourism department. Question 3. Will council move to terminate their relationship with T&E, as has Greater Shepparton and Ballarat councils, which have both terminated their memorandum of understanding with their visitor economy partnerships and returned their tourism activities to in-house managers? The CEO, Trevor Areno.
Thanks, Robin, for the question, and through you, Mayor Price. I would reject that the council allows T&E to take over its tourism activities for our shire. It certainly does not do that. So the role of T&E is a collaborative approach by which a whole range of councils can get together, share their small resources to much better effect by combining them with other councils in the region, and help market Indigo on a regional basis, which it can do through a relationship like it does with T&E, and also in the combined effort also attracts more funds from the government than it would if we were on our own. So that benefit from it that we receive from T&E would move me to say, well, I would not propose to council that we terminate our relationship with T&E. I can't comment on Shepparton and Ballarat. I presume that they're doing their own analysis of whether they're getting value enough from the relationship. And that's up to them what they do. But we've certainly, being a small shire, we've found that the value we gain by collaborating not just with T&E but with our fellow councils through a mechanism like T&E, we get much better bang for buck acting as a group than we would alone. And I would not propose that we terminate our relationship with T&E.
The next 5 sets of questions relate to item 12.3 of the agenda. Councillor Shepherd.
I'll leave the room because these questions refer to 12.3, where I have conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So just in terms of how we're going to manage all of your questions, we do have quite a lot of them, and we understand that you make an effort to be here and you want them heard, and that's exactly what we intend to do. We're not going to answer each of them individually so that we don't perhaps repeat answers, but I will ask them all collectively. Each of your questions will be read out, and then the Director of Community and Economic Development is going to give an answer to your questions. That we may also follow up with some more detailed answer, because that obviously we can't provide all of that detail in the open forum tonight, but we hope that satisfies you coming here tonight to have your questions answered, but also allows us to continue on with our ordinary council business as well. So I'll start with the first set of questions from Liana Beatson. Can I confirm? Thank you. I can confirm Liana's here. My name is Liana Beatson and I'm writing on behalf of Beechworth Kindergarten. I'm a mum, staff member and committee member. Please find attached my 3 questions for tonight's Indigo Shire Council meeting in regards to item 12.3. 1, we are incredibly lucky in Beechworth to have 3 amazing choices for our kindergarten age children, with Beechworth Early Years Learning Centre offering as part of long daycare, Montessori offering as part of their Cycle 1, and Beechworth Kindergarten offering a sessional program. We know that there is no one-size-fits-all rule when it comes to education. Different offerings give our families the choice to make a well-informed decision for what's in the best interest of their children. While no option is better than another for all families within our town, one option will suit a particular family better than another. Other than reducing the waitlist for childcare, how else would it benefit our town to potentially lose the sessional kindergarten option, which currently suits the greatest number of families in Beechworth when taking current enrolment numbers into account? The second question, in regards to the expression of interest for the tender of the occupancy of the Mayday Hills Early Years facility, Has the expression of interest already been written? And if so, why was there no consultation with the Beechworth Kindergarten in this process? And how will council be accountable for this? We are professional experts and know the community, families and children of Beechworth in the kindergarten space better than anyone. If the expression of interest has not been written, what plans are in place to ensure that both Beechworth Kindergarten and Beechworth Early Years Learning Centre have input, consultation and are involved in discussions to ensure Beechworth Kindergarten's professional experience is taken into account to ensure the best outcome for our children? And the third question, since opening in 1964, Beechworth Kindergarten has provided the community with a generational legacy, my children being our family's third generation who have attended Beechworth Kindergarten, of quality kindergarten sessional education. As a highly regarded and long-standing community asset focused on serving local communities and their children, what are the plans and support to ensure this valuable community-run service has a home to continue providing sessional kindergarten beyond that of 2025, with the outcome focused on what is best for all of our children? Thanks for your questions, Liana. The second set of questions comes from, I've got an email address of beechworth.committee@kindergarten. Is there someone here representing that? Oh, apologies. So, Avril, you're here in the audience. Thank you. Okay, question 1. Established in 1964, Beechworth Kindergarten is the oldest early years educational service within the community and the only dedicated sessional kinder provider. We are also the largest early kinder service in town, with 35 families enrolled in 2024, clearly demonstrating the long-standing value our service holds within the community. Our service is also highly regarded for the warmth and inclusivity of our culture, welcoming and supporting a number of vulnerable and at-risk children with special needs, as well as our strong educational outcomes and school readiness preparation. We have been operating out of our current premises within Mayday Hills since 1998 and are happily situated there. However, are not eligible to participate in the EOI process to remain there, as we do not offer and do not intend to offer a childcare service. Given that council is aware of this, we would like to query why we are being intentionally excluded from this process. The agenda notes that this process will be fair and transparent. However, the reality seems far from this. Rather, there seems to be a genuine lack of goodwill by council towards an essential community service, its families and employees. Question 2. Beechworth Kindergarten was advised in April of the council's intention to pursue a single occupancy agreement from 2026 onwards. However, there was no consultation with the service prior to this. Equally, post initial correspondence with the relevant person overseeing the proposal, Beechworth Kindergarten was largely unable to get an engagement from council as the said employee was on extended leave, only returning this month. We were only alerted recently to the fact that this proposal was not yet approved by council and was subject to being voted on at the AGM. This proposal had been communicated as a fait accompli. How can such a proposal be under consideration when engagement and transparency with one of the primary stakeholders has been so minimal and the potential impact to the business future viability is so great? And the third question. Beechworth Kindergarten has discussed this proposal at length with the Department of Education, and they too have questioned the benefit for this EOI for single occupancy. Originally, they did indicate their support for our participation in the EOI process. However, as per my previous question, we now know that Beechworth Kindergarten is not eligible. To that end, we have been exploring with the department other potential locations from which to operate out of without success. Any new location will require a minimum of 3 years to receive approval and certification from the VSBA/DE, and equally co-location at Beechworth Primary School with a modular building under the state government's new strategy is not possible, even though BPS supports the proposal at a high level. Because under the Kindergarten Infrastructure and Services Plan, Beechworth still has kinder capacity across the 3 services operating. In brief, it is simply not feasible for Beechworth Kindergarten to relocate to a new premises with the current lease remaining term. If we are not able to participate in the EOI to remain at the current site, this will mean that Beechworth Kindergarten will be forced to cease operation beyond 2025. How can council in good conscience allow this to happen to the town's oldest and largest kinder provider? We are an essential service to the community and should be shown support from council, not be pushed out the door quite literally. Thank you, Avril. The next set of questions are from Kayla Collier. Thank you, Kayla. First question. The pre-prep rollout, which replaces current 4-year-old kindergarten, starts in the Indigo Shire in 2027. This means more funded hours for our children the year before they start their primary school journey. Our family lives in Beechworth and my son will begin his kindergarten journey in 2027 and be eligible for more hours of funded pre-prep by 2028, according to the rollout guide. We, like many others in Beechworth, have a preference for sessional kindergarten education that is not Montessori focused. How can we ensure sessional kindergarten is protected within Beechworth for families like mine, so we don't have to travel to towns like Yakandanda for this type of education for our children? The second question. In 2024, Beechworth Kindergarten operates at approximately 80% of the utilisation rate within its sessional hours. In 2025, after consultation with our families, our service will be expanding our hours further to support working families, thereby increasing the utilisation further. And finally, based on current enrolment numbers, we do not have sufficient capacity to support the rollout of pre-prep in 2027. This is a concern we have been attempting to address in our forward planning. Childcare is already at capacity. Given that both services are under pressure already, how can it be suggested that this proposal will provide any long-term sustainable improvements to the utilisation of the premises? And question 3, has the current proposal taken into account the different offering service of the current arrangement, childcare setting versus sessional kindergarten? Although the kinder programs of both services are regulated under the same framework, the purpose of each service and the educational outcomes are entirely different, as anyone who has worked in the sector would attest. Has council sought advice from any educational experts or the Department of Education around the value sessional kindergarten holds within a community and why they should in fact be supported by council? Thank you, Kayla. And Sandra Knights. Thank you, Sandra. There's 3 questions from Sandra. Sandra, when and how was the broader Beechworth community consulted on this proposal? The second question, do you have any intention of providing or helping to find a suitable site for Beechworth community to continue operating out of? And the third question, if not, have you considered the implications for Beechworth Kindergarten having to cease operation and how the community has responded to this? Thank you, Sandra. And the last set of questions for this item is from Nikki Isaac. Thank you, Nikki. The first question is, why single occupancy now? With the current threat of single occupancy in the Mayday Hills building has been co-inhabited with dual occupancy by both Beechworth Kindergarten and Beechworth Early Years Learning Centre since its establishment in 1998. Why has the decision been made to go to a single occupancy now? What has changed and what is the council's rationale for going to one service provider? Have you considered the implications for Beechworth Kindergarten ceasing its ability to operate? And has the Early Years Hub, for which the council ran a working group only last year been removed? The second question, wait list. The wait list noted in the agenda reflects babies to toddler age children rather than kindergarten age children. As such, this concern only pertains to childcare and is a matter for their management to address directly. Whilst Beechworth Kindergarten is understanding and sympathetic to the constraints the current wait list poses for the community, we are separate entities and do not believe that we should be penalised in our ability to operate due to numbers so wholly unrelated to our service offering. Have you considered how this proposal will impact the number of kindergarten spaces available in Beechworth, especially considering the impending rollout of pre-prep? And the third question is the request for ongoing lease. Beechworth Kindergarten and our community are requesting councillors to vote for option 2. Council supports the extension of occupancy agreements for the current providers with the intention to support Beechworth Kindergarten in either remaining in the current location or transition to a new alternate location by an agreed upon time with minimum 5+ forward date 5+ years forward date. Is this supported from our council possible? Those are all the questions for item that relate to item 12.3. I'm now going to go to the Director of Community and Economic Development to give some responses and a general overview and response to those sets of questions.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and through you. And I have done my best in the little time available to respond to as many of the questions that were posed there. My staff and I are happy to follow up with further detail after this meeting. But just as a recap of to try and respond to as many of the points raised in all of that correspondence, I'll provide the following for now. So council currently leases the facilities at Mayday Hills for the provision of early years services. The trigger for the report that's happening in tonight's agenda is that the current occupancy arrangements expire in 2025. Council does understand how important the entire suite of early years and kinder services are to families, the entire community and the economy. So therefore we're wanting to move on the expiry of these current occupancy agreements. This report recommends advertising for a single provider to occur from the Mayday Hills site because the current shared occupancy arrangements has, at least in recent years, proven to be challenging, and that the issues experienced that prove to be challenging will be overcome by having a single occupant. The process that the report commences is open and transparent and allows the entire sector to present an expression of interest. The assessment criteria recommended in the report are designed to maximise the benefit for the community without being prescriptive. That means any kindergarten and or childcare service provider who has experience and are certified can present their submission for assessment in what will be open to all. No individual services or service providers are ruled in or out as part of this process, and non-conforming expressions of interest will be given due consideration. The method being followed for this report is consistent with how council carries out these processes, and council welcomes expressions of interest from professional service providers. Both of the current tenants have been kept informed of this process, and there has been regular communication between the Department of Education and council in relation to this process over many months. To minimise any disruption and to ensure continuity of service in the interim, council has extended the current occupancy arrangements to allow time for alternative arrangements to be explored in the event that the current occupants are not successful through this EOI process. In terms of broader consultation, following the Perkins report of 2022, council established an interim solutions working group. This was established through a calling for expressions of interest. A 10-member working group was established. The result of this work were inconclusive in terms of identifying an agreed preferred future site. In any event, the development of a new facility would require obtaining land and funding, and then time would be required for the construction of any facility. Therefore, council is in the position of needing to undertake a process to continue the provision of early years services beyond 2025 when the current occupancy agreements expire. Following the expression of interest process, council will continue to be committed to work with early years service providers for the benefit of the entire community.
Thank you, Director. Now we'll go to our last set of questions for the open forum, and they are from Charles Mitchell. Can I confirm, Charles, that you're in the audience? So these questions are going to be disallowed tonight under Rule 35F of the governance rules. In particular, they relate to item 7, that the questions are repetitive questions that have already been asked and answered at previous meetings. So that brings us to the end of open forum. Can we invite Councillor Shepherd back in as well, please? We'll now go to community and council achievements. Councillor Crouch, you wish to note a community and council achievement?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I was privileged to attend the 110th anniversary celebration of Beechworth Red Cross branch. And what an achievement this is. And I do believe the Beechworth Red Cross is one of only a few throughout Australia who have been in existence for 110 years. Red Cross is a vital service for our communities, providing crisis relief and care to vulnerable people both in Australia and abroad. Where would we be without our volunteering organisations? And Red Cross would have to be at the top of the list for their community involvement and assistance. Congratulations, Beechworth Red Cross branch, on your 110th anniversary, and may you continue to offer your magnificent services to our communities here and abroad for many years to come.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Horn, you'd like to note a community and council achievement?
Yes, I have. I'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge some outstanding service to our communities by SES personnel around the Shire. In particular, Irene Cracknell received a 40 years long service award. John Tyrrell, 35 years service. Mark Nesbitt, 15 years. Roger Farrell, another 15 years. Jeffrey Berg, 10 years. And Tony Harris, 10 years. Over in Yakandanda, Joe Elliott, a 35-year commitment to our communities. Jackie Ashman, 20 years. John Williams, 20 years. Keith Hunter, 10 years. Louise Reitman, 10 years. Shane Willis, 10 years. In Chiltern, Ray Steadman received a 10-year long service award, and Cameron Roach, 5 years of service. In Beechworth, Terry Lovedale, 30 years of long service, and James Marshall, 15 years. So a remarkable contribution to our safety and well-being by these people, and to thank them and acknowledge their service.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, you'd like to note a community and council achievement?
Yes, often these celebrations are either community or council. But tonight, we've really something to celebrate from both the community aspect and the council aspect, because both, it's been quite a collaboration really for us to achieve National Heritage listing for our historic precinct, or as it's named, the Beechworth Administrative Precinct, on August the 16th. So really, we also had a very impromptu celebration on the last Sunday, where the Beechworth Historic and Heritage Committee got ACRE, the Beechworth Jail, Beechworth Inc., which is the shop holders chambers, thank you, and council together with the community to have a party with a big cake that I think we supplied. And 90 people attended that impromptu celebration, which was pretty amazing, really, out of the blue, just to quickly celebrate. And we all were very aware that the community that were there, many of them had held that space, whether they were, they celebrated a lot of people, old, and I think Don Pope as a engineer, and sorry, I better get the right name, but everybody who had something to do with keeping that precinct intact over so many years. The Save the Beechworth Courthouse group were there, and everyone had something to say, but I think one of the great things about it is we all look to be able to collaborate together to maintain and celebrate that space now as a National Heritage listing. And we look forward to now our next bid in the UNESCO World Heritage bid for the next stage of that space. So a great celebration with the 90 people there, all very excited about the fact that they've maintained that space, and also council has done their work in preserving it, and of course offering amazing educational and historic and heritage activities. So yeah, we look forward to the federal government having a bit more to say in that space now, hopefully with better funding. That might be something to look forward to.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Are there any other community and council achievements to note tonight for tonight's meeting? We'll go to item 7, condolences. Are there any condolences that would like to be noted for the meeting? No. Item number 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. A, minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of July 2024 as published on council's website. B, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of July 2024 as provided to councillors under separate cover. And 2, that the minutes from the joint council meeting held on the 13th of August 2024 be accepted. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Gold, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes, and there is none. Item 10 is petitions, and there are none. Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is the June 2024 finance report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the draft management view finance report for June 2024. Could I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Mayor. The June financial report, the official 2023-2024 statutory financial statements will be finalised in coming months and audited by Vargo. Council's closing position as at the 30th of June 2024 was 6.8 million unfavourable. That was mainly due to a number of things. The first was the delayed grant income of 2.9 million. The second one, I might ask for an explanation from the Director of Finance and Planning that the non-cash adjustment to Council's asset register to remove an incorrect entry of 2.88 million.
Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just reiterate what was said at the start. We're still going through the end of financial year process, so this is all preliminary at this stage. But the asset register was checked, and there was an asset, a property on there that shouldn't have been on there. So somewhere in the past, an asset's come on and given us a false boost, and we've removed that, and so it does a paperwork adjustment. So it's not a loss of 2.888. It's just a balancing of a false positive in the past. So no real impact on council's finances or how we operate, but important that we have these things right. So we've made that adjustment to that asset.
Thank you, Director. Point 3 is flood recovery work completed, but not yet claimed back from the state government of 1.64 million and increased depreciation of $436,000.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Only to highlight Councillor Gaffney's point that even though we were unfunded as interstate or federal, we still had a commitment to make sure that our roads and bridges have been replaced, and that funding will come through eventually as well.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is the July 2024 finance report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the July 2024 finance report. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Mayor. The income statement shows that council is $484,000 favourable on a year-to-date budget compared to the 2024-2025 annual budget. There's another matter that I'd like to bring that is cause from some concern, is that I've been informed that there's been a significant increase in rates not being paid. The amount of money involved is substantial, and I was just wondering whether the Director of Finance and Planning could give some reason
as to why that's happened, the amount of money compared to other years, and how this situation can be overcome.
Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, so again, preliminary numbers from the end of financial year, the rates debtors has grown by approximately $619,000, which is about a 21% increase on where we normally are. So it's around about a $3 million total rates debt. We are seeing, when I speak to my colleagues in other councils, we're seeing this a bit across the board. There's been a growth in rates debt, and I wouldn't guess. I actually don't know the reason for that, but presumably the cost of living and a few other pressures may be weighing into that. And we certainly have been taking all efforts to work with people, have payment plans, and help them stay on track and catch up as they can.
Just a follow-up question. Do you believe that this amount of money will be retrieved? And do you know over what period of time that might happen? And how does the unpaid rates for this council compare to others of similar size?
So I can't answer the second part to that. I haven't got a benchmark for how that might compare, but I'm happy to take that on notice and circulate that through the Finance Committee. The first part, remind me of that. Oh, yes, sorry. So one of the things about rates debt is that it's a debt on the property. So a little bit different to a lot of other debts. The property incurs the debt and it stays there in perpetuity. So even though we have an outstanding rates debt that's on our books, almost none of it is considered a bad debt because the property maintains that. At some point when a property is sold, the state government gets paid, then council gets paid, then the banks get paid. So it sits there as a debt in perpetuity. So I can't answer on the timing. As I said, we work with our ratepayers all the time to make sure that we've got as best payment plans as we can to help people out. But yeah, the debt will remain. So it's 100% certain of being collected. It's just how long that takes.
Thank you.
Councillor Crouch, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, this is a comprehensive report of the July finance and notes that it does relate to the end of the financial year and also notes the various adjustments still to be made.
Thank you, Councillor Crouch. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3 is planning permit application PP 24-0085 for 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen. And I believe I've got to go to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you very much. Since this was put in the agenda, council's received some more information about this permit that we need to work through and understand and work with the applicant. So we'll withdraw this from tonight's agenda to give us time to work through that new information. Then we'll return to council as and when is appropriate for that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Gaffney, you have a question?
Question, yes. We only found out that this was to be withdrawn this morning. So is it being withdrawn by council or by the applicant? And for what reason? Is it because it's going to be amended, or will it come back to council in its current form?
Yeah, so to be clear, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, to be clear, this is the staff, this is the planning department withdrawing it from the agenda from tonight. So the application itself is still live, and we're just saying that it's not ready for a decision. The reason for that is that I believe that it will be amended. The new information indicates that it will be amended And we'll have a little bit more work to do before we're ready to have a decision on that one.
Thank you, Director.
Do we have a date when this will come back, or is it over a certain period of time? Because after the September council meeting, council probably won't sit for about another 3 or 4 months. So is it due to come back to that date, or is it just put in the too hard basket for a long time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're hopeful that it could make next month, but the turnaround is really quick. So we'll try our very best. I would suggest that that's a very short turnaround. It's more likely to go to the next council meeting, which, as you pointed out, puts caretaker period in there. So it's likely to be a few months if it doesn't make next month.
Just a follow-up question. At the last council meeting, there was a property at Indigo Creek Road that was also pulled at the very last.
Councillor Gaffney, I'm just checking.
Trying to establish why this is happening.
I think we have established that. I think that we've established that the staff are withdrawing the item because there's more information and there is an understanding that it could come back as an amended application. I think if we're going to refer back to different planning applications, they will have their own different circumstances, and other councillors may have conflicts of interest with those items. So you can ask another question, but I think we've got just about as much clarity as we could probably get.
It's only going back 1 month.
But we have a councillor in the room who declared a conflict of interest in relation to that item. But do we need to ask that question? Because again, if it's about clarity, I think that the director has provided a response to say that the staff are withdrawing this application because they've had recent information this morning from the applicant to suggest that the application could change its form, may come back as an amended application.
I'll probably be asking questions about another item, so I can leave the Indigo Creek Road one until then, if that would be okay with you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, so to confirm, councillors, item 11.3, 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen, has been withdrawn from the agenda. So we'll now move to 11.4, which is planning permit application PP 240009 for 154 Mia Road, Browns Plains. The item is for decision. The recommendation is 2.5 pages long. I don't intend to read the whole lot. I will read the beginning of the recommendation and the headings. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council grant a planning permit allowing buildings and works, extension to winery and distillery in the farming zone, environmental significance overlay and heritage overlay at 154 Mia Road, Browns Plains, subject to the following conditions. And the headings for those conditions are compliance with endorsed plans, water storage dam, engineering conditions, stormwater drainage, car parking, over the page, sediment control and soil and water management, external fabric, permit expiry, and there are permit notes from NECMA and the EPA. Do I have somebody who would move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an extension of a winery on Mia Road. The only reason that it's come to council is that the extension will be in excess of $2 million. And one of the main thing is to increase the dam there to a significant amount. I think it's good for Indigo Shire, good for the wine region. It's in an ideal situation and I'm all for it.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I confer that it really has only come to us because it's over $2 million and everything has been approved by the planning department with all the all those different permits and acts that you were going to read out have already been covered. One thing that I think is great to see, because this is Morris Winery, is the car parking is going to be fixed up in that space. So I think it's all just been quite, it's grown exponentially without any sort of serious planning around the car parking, whereas now 88 car parks will be planned for that space, and the fact that the effluent that's going from the distillery is going to be put out by trickle irrigation into trees that are going to be planted on the property. So I think that's a good addition to that winery as well. So yeah, I agree. It's an exciting expansion and should be great for our region. I think an extra 11 people will be employed. Anyway, it's 12, was it? Great. So yeah, a great addition.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn?
Yes, this can only be good, and I commend the project people and look forward to this wonderful outcome.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, councillor Gaffney, as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Just like to add that there were no objections to this application.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.5 is planning permit application PP 22-0070 Barlow Lane, Burong. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council issues a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit application PP 230070 for a 2-lot re-subdivision at Barlow Lane and 2298 Myrtleford Yakandana Road, Burong, on the following grounds. 1, the proposed subdivision is not required for the continued use of the land for agricultural production, but is rather for lifestyle purposes and is not in accordance with the municipal planning strategy or the planning policy framework. 2, the proposed subdivision will remove agricultural land from agricultural production by transferring it from a large genuine agricultural lot to a small lifestyle lot, which is at odds with the purpose and decision guidelines for subdivision in the farming zone. And 3, the proposal is not supported by the decision guidelines at clause 65.01 and 65.02 of the Indigo planning scheme. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Councillor Gold, you'd like? Councillor Gold, you're moving that motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Excuse me, that's right, Madam Mayor, could I just foreshadow that if this motion fails, there'll be an alternate motion put.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. So if this motion fails, there will be an alternate motion put. I'll go to councillor Gold as the mover.
Thank you very much. I think, again, this is another one of these quite challenging decisions where we're being asked to make a decision around the subdivision of farmland, where we have a planning and council policy which is to maintain farm acreage in large lots to maximise primary production potential, and an understanding of the current owner and his rationale for dividing this land. Both are really strong arguments. I think it's really important that we have some consistency both to our ratepayers and people who own farmland in the Indigo Shire, that there is a policy in place and that this council adheres to that policy until or if that policy is changed. And the policy is that we advocate for large parcels of farmland, that we ask that land be consolidated rather than reduced in size, that removing any land, even if it's small scale, from a farm, a lot, ultimately reduces the amount of land available for farming on that lot. And it's a repeating pattern which I have concerns about. And until the policy changes, I don't believe that it is for councillors to take on a separate viewpoint from our planning decisions.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll leave it at there for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Reserve my right, thanks.
You've reserved your right. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No other councillor would like to speak to the motion. Councillor Shepherd, I'll go back to you as the seconder, as you've reserved your right.
Really, I have nothing more to add rather than what councillor Gold has said, that we have a we have a policy within the planning department that we really, us as councillors have decided that this is important to us, that we keep farming zone land as larger scale farms and shouldn't subdivide them for smaller lots, especially not hobby farms, which I don't have anything against hobby farms as such, but to break up a large agricultural farm for hobby farm is probably not something that well, it is definitely something we don't support strategically. And until we change our minds about that, I think I agree we should follow our policy.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. So I'll put it to the vote just to remind councillors that this is a decision for refusal. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? So that decision has not been passed. So to note those that were against the decision, I'll have you raise your hand again. That's councillor against, sorry. Oh, sorry, for the refusal, councillor Gold, Shepherd and Price, and those who voted against the refusal is councillor Horn, Tysell, Croucher and Gaffney. So the motion is failed. Councillor Gaffney, you foreshadowed that there would be an alternate motion put if that motion were to fail. Councillor Gaffney.
I'd like the motion put, which has been done by the what's the word? Not acknowledgement. What's the of an alternate motion from the planning department, and the recommendation is that council issues planning permit 230125 for the use and development of land at 345. Excuse me, Madam Mayor, that's the one after. The motion is that council resolves to issue a planning permit for a 2-lot re-subdivision at Barlow's Lane and 2298 Myrtleford Yakananda Road, Burong, subject to conditions.
So, councillors, we've had this alternate motion circulated similarly to a previous item. There are recommended conditions. There's approved subdivision, agreements with relevant authorities, easements, referral of plans of subdivision, expiry date. I just confirm, councillor Gaffney, that's the motion you're intending to move. So that is now the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tysell, you'll second that motion. So it's been moved by councillor Gaffney, seconded by councillor Tysell. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak to the motion?
There were a few things said during the previous motion which spoke about the subdivision of farmland. There is no further subdivision of farmland. There's a realignment of a boundary fence. There were no objections. There is no land lost from farmland whatsoever. The land is still zoned farmland. And I can't see of any disadvantage regarding farming to this property.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tysell, would you like to speak as seconder?
This is a young farming family that's generational. It's a simple land transfer between neighbours. It creates no new entitlements to housing. This particular family is transitioning from a very difficult dairy industry to beef, and a neighbour had inquired as to whether or not they would like to sell some of their less productive land, making up some rocky, hilly country and a bit of forestation. The retention of the titles allow for the family to complete succession planning in their future for the next generation. And this is a family that is committed to farming. As I said, they've been there for a very long time and it's multi-generational. They practice best farming practices. They don't use chemicals and they are committed to the land, and they are trying to make this more productive, not less productive for their families and their futures.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, and then I'll come to you, councillor Horn.
Well, this to me, having viewed the site, had a look at it, seems to be a simple boundary alignment. The next door neighbour has expressed interest to purchase 25 acres and add to his own 7 acres to run cattle and sheep. 25 acres is marginal country, some part of it is unproductive, suitable only for cattle and sheep, but still relates in a simple form to agriculture and a great addition for the semi-retired farmer. Additional finance for the sale of this land will assist the other farmer with the transition from dairy farming to beef meat production for the owner of this property.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think this amendment is a practical and sensible outcome. I believe it ticks all the boxes in maintaining the farming purposes for both properties and gives the family the opportunity to adjust their farm management and improve usage on both sides of the fence. So I think it's a good outcome.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I think these are always difficult decisions because they speak to us that my sympathy is absolutely with this exemplary farming family. And where I always struggle is the fact that our job is to be strategic around these decisions. I want to be personal. I would love to vote to support a family who obviously will make some money that will help them in their transition. And it's a struggle because we do have we're meant to be strategic about our decision making. So I understand why the councillors find themselves torn in these situations.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to say that I think it's very hard to balance, as what councillor Shepherd has just said, looking strategically at farming land and preserving farming land when really you can't see the impact of that for each particular planning application item that you might deal with council. It's something that you see the effects of the impacts of 20 years down the track once you've been making 20 years worth of decisions. I think that all of our sympathies always go to whoever the people are that are coming to us with a planning permit application. We understand that they have put real logic around what their proposal is, but nonetheless, it's our responsibility to implement the planning scheme. And as was referenced by councillor Gold in the previous motion, if it's not the policy of Indigo Shire to maintain and consolidate and preserve farming land for farming, then we should change that policy, because otherwise, piece by piece over time, we will subdivide farming land to the point where it is not viable.
Point of order, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
now,
There's nothing in this motion that's talking about subdividing farmland.
thank you, councillor Gaffney. Those are my choice of words. I'll now go back to the mover. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor. There were no objections to this application at all. There is no new dwelling. There is nothing that will interfere with the farming land, and a few things that have been said today are just not right. It's just purely a boundary realignment. That's the application. And I'd like to think that this council, that we support the farming community and we support the right to farm.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. So I'm now going to put it to the vote, and just to confirm with councillors, the motion that we're voting on is that council resolves to issue a planning permit for a 2-lot re-subdivision at Barlow Lane and 2298 Myrtleford Yakandanda Road, Burrong, subject to conditions. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? The motion is carried. For the record, to see who those councillors were in favour: councillor Horn, Tysell, Croucher, Gaffney in favour, and councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price against. The motion is carried. Item 11.6 is planning permit application PP 230152 18 Duncans Lane, Beechworth. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council refuse to grant a permit for the buildings and works to construct a dwelling and a rural store in a farming zone on the following grounds. The proposed, Councillor Gaffney?
I received an email today from the applicant saying that he would now like to withdraw that application from the council agenda today.
So I'm going to go to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Director Greg Pinkerton. That email has been circulated to councillors, Director.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen the email. The agenda is set by council staff based on the decisions that need to come to council for decision. We've had a look at that, and there's nothing that we can see that would give reason for this to be withdrawn. The application has been clarified. The planning work has been done. We're confident that we have full understanding of it, and we're confident in our recommendation, and so it's now appropriate for it to come to council for a decision, and there's no new information or changed information or anything that would make us doubt that it's ready for a decision. So well aware of the applicant's desire, but it is appropriate now for council to review this and ponder the decision.
Thank you,
Just a
Director.
couple of questions, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Gaffney.
Just as a prelude, this is a very large deposit farming property.
I think the motion hasn't been put, so
No,
we're not
no.
discussing the item as such. You just asked for questions. I'm assuming they're questions about the procedure of whether this will be withdrawn or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will move a motion and debate the item. But at the moment, there's no motion, so there is no debate. So if you've got questions of clarification about the procedure of withdrawing, they can be asked of the Director.
All right, could I ask them now?
Yes.
Yeah. The property's been with the same farming family for
But
over.
again, Councillor Gaffney,
100
you're
years.
going into the item we're not discussing the item yet. We
Okay.
can discuss it once it has been moved and seconded. But if you'd like to ask questions of clarification about the procedure, that's what we can ask before then.
Okay, this item has been brought to council before, and there's an issue with access that DECA.
Again, Councillor Gaffney, I think we can deal with all of that in just a moment. I'm going to continue to put the recommendation now. So the recommendation is that council refuse to grant a permit for the buildings and works to construct a dwelling and a rural store in a farming zone on the following grounds. The proposed access crosses public land and does not have the consent of the relevant public land manager, and access is not available in accordance with the requirements of clause 35.07-2. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, again, this is something that I feel so sorry for this applicant. The request to use and develop essentially a home on this land, use the site for a store to get greater benefit both for the owners and the community is fantastic. The holdup is that the access to the land is not owned by either council or the applicant, that we are reliant on DECA approving road access to the site, and at present they will not do so. We do realise that that is a very, very difficult process and can take a couple of years to do so. We have, and I think in communications both with council officers and conversations at councillor level, we have looked for ways where we can support this applicant in their endeavours to secure road access. We've even gone so far as to seek legal advice in the best way forward for us. And that advice has been to, in this first instance, to refuse to grant a permit for the building and the works, even though we, or I personally, support the building and the works that are being proposed. But by refusing the permit now, it draws to an end a lingering planning permit and allows the applicant to now go to DECA and to further address the need to have security of access to his own site.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'll reserve my right, thanks.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor.
Yeah, this is a very difficult one, and it's not fair for the applicant to be put through more misery at VCAT or through any more hoops and hurdles. I do believe that there may be an opportunity for there be a reduction in fees for a reapplication. That's subject to council officers' approval. Yes, it's very difficult, and unfortunately, without DECA as a governing body's permission, we simply can't go forward.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
DECA have made it very clear that they are sympathetic as well, but unless this item, the access is pushed by Indigo Shire Council, it's basically got no hope of getting up. It's been in the same farming family for over 100 years, and it would be just terrible that there's always been access, but DECA, it was never official access. The applicant has spent over $18,000 doing things for that Indigo Shire required of him, including architectural drawings for a house on that land. And the applicant sent a letter today saying that he wanted it withdrawn, just the same as the other one at Barclay Street, Rutherglen. That was granted. The same one at Indigo Creek Road, just 1 month ago, that was granted. But then suddenly the rules change, and for this applicant, council's not prepared to allow him to withdraw. And it was very plain, just one sentence: I wish to withdraw my application from the council meeting today. I'm more than sympathetic. I just think if it's good for one, it's good for all.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question to our Director of Planning and Corporate Services. If this is refused tonight, what is the pathway going forward for the applicant?
Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just point out one sentence in the report. It says, overall, the proposal would provide an appropriate and orderly planning outcome for the site if the informal access can be resolved. So at this stage on the application that exists, from a council perspective, from the planning perspective, it meets the requirements. The hurdle, as has been said, is that road access. So the pathway forward is to work through that process. So there's a really nice process set out by DECA, council and DECA and the applicant work together, go through that process. And it has been clearly articulated that it will take a while. Once that road access is sorted, then it's planning permit time, building permit, live happily ever after.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion?
Could I ask another question?
Yes, Councillor Shepherd, you have a question?
Yes, I was just, to what extent, seeing we support this, and it's a very good application with all the, farming ideas and planning that's very articulated throughout this whole document. How else can we be of assistance with DECA then? They seem quite adamant in their, Councillor Gaffney said that he's heard that they're sympathetic, but the objection here sounds quite adamant. I'm just wondering, how can we be of assistance then if we're so supportive of this application?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. The road, if it's declared, would be a council road. So it's currently Crown land, so DECA has a role to play in this because they need to give it approval. But if it was declared, it would be a council road. And that's why we need to work together on this. There needs to be a formal request, which for a number of reasons is only a recent request. So it needs to be a formal request, then go through the process. It's not a rubber stamp process. There's some real questions that need to be considered in each of those steps. But that's where council, DECA and the applicant need to work together and just go through each of those steps. At the end of it, if it's a successful process, DECA would provide the go-ahead and say, that's fine, we're happy for that piece of Crown land to be used as a council road. And then council would be happy that that is now part of the council road network.
Thank you, Director. I'd just like to make a few comments as well to say, I think you can hear that access is the only issue here. And I think the planning department has brought to us a recommendation that they think best assists the applicant with acquiring that access and that is to refuse the planning permit. We want to be able to send a clear message about the planning permit, but also a clear message to the applicant to go back to DECA to work with them. And then we will be waiting to receive a new application with that access when that access has been acquired. So it's unfortunate that although we would support this application with all of its merits, as it is that the access is the issue in this instance, but we have had lengthy discussions with our planners and with our staff to say, could this be the best path forward for this application, and have been satisfied as such. Councillor Gold, I'll go back to you as the move. Sorry.
Can I ask a question, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Gaffney, you can ask a question.
To the Director of Finance and Planning, there is a road that runs into the property from Newey Road, and it's a road with no name to my knowledge. Did the council in fairly recent times spend a considerable amount of time and money putting in culverts and drainage to that road?
Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thank you. Don't know the details of the work that we carried out, but Newey Road or Newey Lane was certainly a road that suffered flood damage recently and did have some repairs done, so I can confirm that.
Thank you, Director. I'll go back to the mover. Councillor Gold, would you like to sum up? Apologies, Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, you reserved your right. Would you like to speak? No. Councillor Gold, I'll go back to you to sum up.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest it's really clear that we are all incredibly supportive of this application and have given it a lot of consideration around how to move it forward and in the best way possible support this applicant. I think it's really important to note that while the applicant asked for a withdrawal, it was from tonight's meeting. So without a rationale that there were any new information that would come to light that would enable us to make a different decision. So without any new information on the horizon, there was not a justification to withdraw the application from consideration. I think it's really clear that the only way forward to resolve this is with DECA, and I think the Director has made it really clear that Council will continue to work with the applicant and advocate on their behalf with DECA to secure road access. And if that means this piece of land becomes a council road, then that would be a great outcome. And that we know this will be a really long process, but we're not going to wane in our support for this applicant. I think it's also really critical to acknowledge that we received extensive legal advice on the way forward. And I think it would be an appalling decision on our part if we were to contradict the legal advice that we were given. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Gold. I'll remind councillors, the item is for decision and the recommendation is to refuse to grant this permit. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. For the record, we'll note who those were that voted in favour. Councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price, Croucher, Tysell, and those against were councillor Gaffney and Horn. The motion is carried. Item 11.7 is planning permit application PP 230125 for 345 Reeds Way, Werribee. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council issue a notice of decision for the refusal of planning permit application 230125 for 345 Reeds Way,
Excuse me,
Werribee.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate motion.
And councillor Tysell, you'd like to move a motion? Go ahead.
I'd like to move an alternate motion that council issue.
It's not just for the record, it's not an alternate motion. It is now a motion.
A motion. The motion being the council issue planning permit 23-0125 for the use of a development of land at 34 Way. And the recommendation be for approval following the alternate recommendations. I think councillors will have a copy of that.
So just to confirm, councillor Tysell, that does deviate a little bit from the motion that we all have in front of us. Is it your intention to move the motion that has been circulated to councillors? So that the motion would be that council issue planning permit 230125 for the use and development of land at 345 Reeds Way, Werribee for a dwelling subject to the following conditions with the.
That is correct.
Okay, so I'll just continue to read the headings of those conditions. Endorsed plans, section 173 agreement, CFA materials, stormwater, effluent disposal and expiry. So I'll just check in with you, councillor Tysell. That's the motion that you're moving.
That is correct. Thank you.
Can I ask for a seconder for that motion? Seconded, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I note that the applicant has been there for some time already, having accommodation there. The impact on farming land around it has been negligible as the size is only 1.3 hectares. It already has existing gardens and infrastructure, and that this will be a welcome residence to the Beechworth community.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'll reserve my right, Madam Mayor.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, I actually went and had a look at this site, and I can't see another group accommodation building will affect the connection to agriculture there. I don't see how it would decrease the productive value of the surrounding farmland.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
Yeah, again, I think that this is a practical outcome that I support.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to you, councillor Gaffney. You reserved your right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a property in Reeds Way, Werribee. It's had tourist accommodation there for a considerable amount of time. It's only a very small block of land, and the owner wishes to build a residence next to the tourist accommodation. There was a hold up from the CFA, but I think the notification came through yesterday. And it basically says that before this development starts, an amended bushfire management plan must be prepared and then submitted to the responsible authority for endorsement. As the mover said, it's a beautiful garden setting. You wouldn't call it bushfire prone, although I think most land in Indigo Shire is bushfire prone. And I think this will be of benefit to the Indigo community, particularly tourist community.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tysell, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I just urge my fellow councillors to approve this application and hopefully, as Councillor Gaffney said, it's another additional to the Beechworth community.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. So to confirm, councillors, this is the motion that was circulated to us earlier. It is that council issue planning permit 230125 for the use and development of land at 345 Reeds Way, Wurrigi, for a dwelling subject to the following conditions. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development. Item 12.1 is Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council adopts the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Policy for 2024. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
So this has been to us before and then it's been out to the community to give feedback. I think we had one comment on it, a personal comment that we've read and noted. I think this is quite an innovative. We don't need to have this policy, but we have decided that because there are so many people that don't have access to policies, programs and services, and their experience is likely to be different and have different outcomes, we thought that we should address those access barriers and design inclusive services and tailor approaches that have brought a benefit to all. So the priority groups for the Indigo Shire Council include carers, children and young people, culturally and linguistically diverse communities, First Nations peoples, gender diverse peoples, LGBTQIA plus people, older people, people experiencing financial insecurity, people experiencing mental illness, people with a disability, refugees and immigrants, and women and girls. Staff training and education resources will be developed to support the capability of all staff. And we have the social responsibility to the community to remove barriers to inclusion and encourage diversity and to uphold human rights. The more people that we can engage with and the more people that can engage with the council, the better decisions, I think, and the better future we have. One thing that I just would like to comment on, that we did lots of community engagement with stakeholders and with different groups of diverse people. And one comment that I thought I'd read out from Line Wangaratta: as a neurodivergent person with limited capacity at times, I really appreciated the way you reached out by phone for a conversation and provided multiple ways for us to provide feedback on this policy. I really appreciated seeing more inclusive ways to engage with community and actively utilised accessible approaches for this process. And I felt like it demonstrates council is walking the walk. And I think that's a great comment where we were walking the walk by giving people lots of opportunities to respond. So yeah, I'm pretty proud that we're putting this forward and hope that the councillors support it.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, well, this policy certainly meets legislative requirements and ensures that all individuals, regardless of background, have equal access to opportunities and resources. And could I congratulate all those involved in the producing of such a comprehensive document.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the Indigo Destination Game Changer Tourism Strategy Evaluation Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the Indigo Destination Game Changer Tourism Strategy 2018 to 2023 Evaluation Report. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I think if you read the report, what you really get out of it is more and more people are coming to Indigo Shire and more people are staying longer. It's great for our businesses and it's great for our communities, and it's going to increase as we get more and more tourist attractions within our town centres.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, visitors from a variety of different parts of the state and country are confirming a boost in visitation numbers, especially after the trials and tribulations of the COVID era.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I was, as were you, Mayor. We were on the committee, I think, that looked at this game changer strategy, and it seemed big at the time. It seemed game changer. How do you change the game in tourism? And I would really like to congratulate our tourism department on, firstly, this great strategy that was very clearly designated what areas we wanted growth in. And one of them was, I remember them discussing quite clearly that they wanted more overnight stays, that we had lots of good tourism of people visiting for the day, but it would make a huge difference to the economy if people stayed overnight. Well, look, it's a larger document, but here, overnight has grown in 2023 by 38%, and the economic output is another $18 million from 2018. So that's absolutely a KPI that was reached, and more people are staying in Yakandanda and Rutherglen, and Rutherglen has gone along in leaps and bounds. Another thing that happened was that we looked at our visitor servicing, and we upgraded the Beechworth one. We took over the Rutherglen Victoria VIC, and we moved the Yakandanda one into the post office. All of those were interesting and challenging things to do, but they've all been very successfully done. The Burke Museum and Historic Precinct they've delivered the Courthouse Kelly trials, the People of Beechworth exhibition. We've done a master plan, which I was involved in. And now, of course, with our heritage, National Heritage award, or whatever you call it, we now will be able to go ahead with that precinct master plan. We've got great collections manager. We've got lots of great training happening. And I really think that the other key projects were Indigo Epic Mountain Bike Trail, the Yakandanda Osmonds Flat Rail Trail, Caravan Park Master Plan, the Silo Art in Rutherglen Precinct Concept Design, the Chiltern Destination Play Space, Rutherglen Loops Wine Walk Cycle Trail, the M2M Rail Trail Enhancement Project, and the Gravel Cycle Trail Mapping. So, and I've just named a few of them. So in that 5-year strategy, a huge amount has been done, even whilst in the middle of all that was COVID. So I'd just like to really congratulate Susanna Doyle and Chloe Powell and anyone else involved in that department, and Sally Rice, who's the Director of Community and Economic Development, for the great work they've done there. And I look forward to being part of developing the new strategy.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'd just like to say this was in my first term of council when this was brought to us. There were differing appetites about whether we should do a strategy that was really bold and ambitious, or whether we should do a strategy that just makes incremental improvements to our tourism offering, and you know, just really was quite conservative. And there were lots of arguments about, as there always are, about how council money can be best spent, and just how we should set our appetite in this space. And we were really guided by staff to say we should be ambitious, and we think that we can achieve quite a bit of what we would be ambitious about. And so tentatively, we endorsed a really ambitious strategy, and very hopeful that we would get to the end of it and see that perhaps some of it is complete, perhaps most of it is complete. And I think that to be able to see this evaluation report come to us as one of the last items of this council at this meeting is something that's a real credit to the organisation, because it was ambitious and it was bold, and nonetheless I think it was set at exactly the right appetite for Indigo Shire Council, and our staff should be extremely proud of the work that they did, but also the networking and the collaboration with community and businesses to achieve this outcome. It's a real feather in our hat, and I think that it puts us in a really good place to look towards what the next strategy is, and the next council should have a lot of confidence in the community, the business community and the council staff that are in place, that they know what they're talking about with tourism, and we should aim high and see where that takes us in the next 5 years. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to Councillor Tyson as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, I think my colleagues have done a very good job of their summations. Thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.3, and before I announce the item, Councillor Shepherd.
I declare a material and conflict of interest with item 12.3 because a close family member is a member of the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre Committee, with whom council has a current occupancy agreement in place.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So you now exit the room for the period of this item, and we'll invite you back in once it's been completed. Item 12.3 is the expression of interest for occupancy of Beechworth Early Years Facility at Mayday Hills. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 supports an expression of interest being advertised for a single provider to occupy the Beechworth Early Years Facility at Mayday Hills for a maximum term of 5 years, and 2 endorses the assessment criteria set out in this report for the expression of interest process to ensure use of the facility is maximised. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold.
Thank you very much. I think we've heard from some of the open forum questions. There is a lot of interest, if I put that mildly, about this particular issue. I think it's important to step back a little bit and think about how council best manages the assets, the facilities that we have. And I think we've tried to have a process in place where the community expects council to be transparent around how our facilities are used, and if we award tenancy or lead tenant or sublet our assets to be it either not-for-profit or for-profit entities, that there's a really transparent and clear process whereby everyone gets to put their hand up, and there's a clear selection process, and then there's a very clear agreement in place. I think it's really behoving on council to have both that clarity of process, to have an opportunity to go to market, to test the demand and the potential uses of our assets. I think it's also really important that our EOI processes allow both for-profit and not-for-profit entities to express interest in becoming a tenant or lead tenant of a facility, and that we have a really broad scope under which organisations can respond, and that we have different expectations of the value to the community for a for-profit, not-for-profit respondee. And so be that social, environmental, economic, or cultural, we can judge applicants on their merit, and it's not simply who can pay the most money. I think this is, again, replicating a process that we have done similarly with other council facilities. It's really stressful for the applicants, for the current tenants. And I think we we need to appreciate that and ensure that communication between council and current tenants remains strong. But I do believe it's appropriate that we go to market and that we do acknowledge that non-conforming responses are actually acceptable. If people have an alternative approach, then please say so.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, would you like to
Yeah,
speak
quick
as seconder?
question.
A question, councillor Gaffney?
This is the first time that I've seen this document, but I noted when you were talking about one's for profit and one not for profit. I'm just wondering, is one group for profit? Because you said it more than once.
It's in response to anybody who may put in an expression of interest to become the lead tenant of this site. There are for-profit childcare service providers. There are not-for-profit childcare service providers in terms of their legal structure. I think what's important that we acknowledge that we can get responses from a variety of operators and that we would do our appropriate assessment based on more than just the dollar value that they may pay. There's a lot of community and social benefit from providers, even if they are not able or don't in their EOI propose to pay a high rent or a dollar value to council in return for the tenancy.
Is the rent going to change or is it just going to stay as a peppercorn rent? I didn't realise that that's not mentioned here in this document.
There is a reference to a peppercorn rent being offered to
There's peppercorn,
not-for-profit.
but not
Yep.
talking about money value. I don't think it's about that.
I guess my point is that if a for-profit organisation did put forward an expression of interest, we may view a peppercorn rent as being inappropriate if there were other criteria under which we might assess a not-for-profit organisation and did not expect a monetary return.
Thank you for your question, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I work in a long daycare centre and in the kindergarten room, so I understand the passion that these people have for their job. I also understand fully that as a standalone kinder, you are disadvantaged when it comes to providing the service when competing against a long daycare facility, which is going to potentially have 100 children, whereas you're probably never going to get near that number. So I'd like the expression of interest process to acknowledge the fact that a standalone kinder isn't never going to be able to offer the same number of places, and that really, if that is going to be one of the criteria, and the kinder does not really want to forfeit their position, that they need to be looked after, because standalone kinder and long daycare offer two completely different products. And kinder should be very valued in this community and should always have a position here.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Yes, although not knocking out the recommendation completely, to me, by getting all of these notes and the information, it seems that there needs to be a lot more discussion between the two parties. There's a lot of innuendos and bits and pieces that have been written down here, and I think that opportunity of actually getting together, I don't know whether that's actually been there fully as well. To me, it seems as if the main support from the people that are here tonight is to support the extension of the occupancy agreement for the current providers, and then to look for a kindergarten in the future to go out and get one. That's what it seems to me to be. Now,
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think this is a rather an emotive matter in that there's such a need for childcare in all its different formats. And yes, I agree with councillor Croucher. It seems to me that there needs to be a great deal more discussion about just how we can approach this matter.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Councillor Gaffney.
When you read the options, there really only is one, isn't there? And that's that council supports the EOI process to identify and secure a suitable, experienced and qualified providers. And the second option about the extension of the occupancy for the current providers, the two, I just wonder how hard council has worked to try to get the parties together. And I think that the kindergarten group coming to council today, and we've listened to what they've said. I've been very surprised. I didn't know that there was such things, and I thought groups always work together, but there is conflict there. But there's not conflict that couldn't be overcome. And we all know that there's nothing more precious than our children or grandchildren. Yeah, so I would just, rather than support this, I'd rather council work harder. I'm not sure where else they could get assistance from, whether it's I don't know about the other kindergartens. I know that the childcare facilities in Chiltern, everybody seems really happy, but looking at the people here, not everybody is. So I'll vote against the recommendation, but that doesn't mean that I'm against it. But I'd just like to see people try harder. Like, you can see us debating in council. I can assure you that a couple of us will go and have a beer or a glass of wine on the way home, and bygones are bygones, and next week's another week. And that'd be good if you could.
I'd just like to make a few comments. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, so I'm just out of childcare and kindergarten. I've used both. I've used the consolidated model. I've used standalone kinder. The most pressing issue for me during my time trying to be counsellor, trying to be mayor, with kids of that age, was getting any care, was finding a place that made sense for me, that was close to where I needed to access care, to be able to do my job, and to be able to have some time away from my kids, and whatever else childcare and kinder might provide. I think that we've heard constantly from our community to say they love to come and live in Beechworth. They've got great job opportunities in Beechworth, and they want to bring their family here, but they cannot get access to places for childcare or kindergarten. It's really difficult, and that's something we're hearing right across the board. So I welcome a process that takes stock of the services that we have, looks at the occupancy agreements, and looks at how they can be best utilised, how we can offer as many places with as many offerings for care as possible, insights that we might have some jurisdiction over. So I think that's what this process is designed to do. And I really welcome feedback from the kindergarten, from the childcare, from community, to tell us this process is designed to suit your community, and that's what we want. The best outcome for is for the families in this community, and I think that's the discussion that needs to be had. As Councillor Gold said, there's been assessment criteria put in place. If there's a non-conforming expression of interest that could be put forward, I think that our council staff would be willing to receive that and consider it as well. We understand that there are lots of different models that work in our communities, and it needs to suit the community, rather than just a catch-all model that is prescriptive to whatever the town is. So for the most part, I think the intention of this expression of interest is to really take stock, to respond to a growing concern that the Beechworth community has had about the number of places for care for their children, and to really have a look at what's the best provision of care, what's the best level of service that can be provided to Beechworth, and what's the most appropriate offering that can be provided to the Beechworth community. So I do think that going through a public expression of interest process is the best place to do that. I think that our staff would welcome expression of interest from new and existing providers within Beechworth, and I expect that it will be a very, very rigorous process, a very diligent process that has the community focus squarely in mind of exactly the offering that they want. And that certainly will be the direction of council to our staff. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? I think we've had everybody. So we'll go back to Councillor Gold as the mover. Would you like to sum
Can I
up?
just ask a question?
Councillor Tyson, you'd like to ask a question?
Yeah, to Director of Community and Economic Development. If it's the desire of the kindergarten to continue, even if the EOI says that they can't cohabitat where they are, will we assist them to find another location?
Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice.
Thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. The outcome of the expression of interest process will be what it is, and council would work as we do with service providers of all types of community services to help support services that are struggling or in need of assistance if this was the trigger for that, which it may well be for one of the current tenants. Of course, council would do everything it could to help find alternative arrangements as quickly as possible.
Councillor Gold, I'll go back to you as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you. I think there's no dispute how much we value the services that are provided and the diversity of services that children need different ways to play and learn and socialise. And at no time would I ever want to see a one-size-fits-all solution. And I think we're all very much in agreement that we need that diversity, and council needs to do what it can to support that ongoing. I think the part of the EIO process aligned with the extension of the tenancy agreement to the end of 2025 was to give a really strong lead time for the EOI process to take its course, to reach a conclusion, still with plenty of time for the current occupants to be well positioned to know what 2026 onwards will look like for them. And I think that's really important, that we have a lead time, that if we delay this EOI process, then we're getting closer and closer to the end of the tenancy. And I don't think that serves either the tenants or the community. I do think it's also really important that we want to find a really positive way forward. And so the EOI process really is a trigger for a lot of definitive conversations, an opportunity for council to work with the current tenants, as well as anybody else who would like to put their hand up. We have to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to put forward what they would like to see and or be a lead tenant. And it's not for us to say that people can't do that, but we do know that we do look at existing tenants and the services they offer in a very positive light. I think for that reason that we do need to support the EOI. What that does do is to amplify our conversations with the current tenants. It doesn't squash them. And I think that's really important.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. A question, Councillor Gaffney.
For the Director of Community Development, when would you expect this to come back to council? Or will it come back in stages?
No, I think the timeline is outlined in the report. If I can find it quickly while I'm looking, for.
It was due in August 25. But that's the agreement. But I didn't see a date to come back here.
No, it will definitely come back here, and it is in the report somewhere. Thank you. EOI for 8 weeks, commencing in the end of August. And you found that quicker than I have, Councillor.
Just to say the EOI process for 8 weeks, from end of August to October.
8 weeks, come back to council before Christmas with the preferred occupant commencing operations in the 1st of January 2026.
So if it comes to council before Christmas, it's only a couple of weeks away. That meant 12 months. Okay.
Yeah, so a decision by council in late this late this year or in the February, early next year, depending on what the expression of interest turns up in terms of needing ongoing sort of discussion to clarify and make an assessment.
I was going to vote against this, but now I want to, that's going to come back.
All right,
Definitely a decision for councillors.
I'll put it to the vote. The expression of interest for occupancy of Beechworth Early Years Facility at Mayday Hills. All those in favour? Those against? So those in favour are councillor Gold, Price, Gaffney, Tysell and Horn. And those against is councillor Croucher. The motion is carried. Can we invite councillor Shepherd back into the room? And for any of you who are staying for that item and wish to leave, you're more than welcome. Likewise, you can stay for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you. Item 13 is infrastructure services and item 13.1 is contract extension for contract 23-6341 supply of mobile maintenance services on council's plant, equipment and fleet. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards a 1-year extension on contract 23/6341 for the supply of mobile maintenance services on council's plant, equipment and fleet to Spanners and Sparks. And 2 notes the total value of works delivered under the contract varies annually, typically between $300,000 and $450,000 per annum. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Tysell, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, it's great to see that council have a reliable and local mechanic to service their equipment, and that this was the contractor last year as well.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Councillor Croucher.
I'd just like to endorse the 1-year extension to Spanner and Sparks. Councillor Tysell said.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tysell, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Do I need to note that councillor Gaffney was out of the room, CEO?
Yeah. It's absent the priority of that item, so I don't think we should count him as voting for or against them.
Okay, so for the minutes, we note that councillor Gaffney was absent for the entirety of that item and did not participate in the vote. Item 13.2 is contract 2425/006, the annual resealing for 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards contract number 2425-006, annual resealing 2024-25 to Boral Resources VIC Proprietary Limited for the amount of $602,318 excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to sign and seal the contract documents. And 3, authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
So the tender from Boral Resources scored the highest against the above evaluation criteria and provided the lowest overall cost with previous demonstrated experience and capacity to deliver the reseal program to a high standard. So, yep, Boral it is.
Thanks, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher.
I agree with everything that councillor Shepherd said.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And again, for to note for the minutes, councillor Gaffney was absent for the entirety of item 13.2 and did not participate in the vote. We expect that he will return any moment. Item 13.3 is 2023-24 Annual Capital Works Summary. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council notes the 2023-24 Capital Works Annual Summary Report and the year-end achievements in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Could I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd.
So this is the 2023 Capital Works Report, and it's been delivered to within 1% of the forecast position, which is pretty amazing. At a simple level, this is an outstanding result, yes, and reflects the hard works and commitments of all staff, including the delivery of these capital budgets. So I think let's take the opportunity to thank all those staff who are obviously at the moment an amazing team and doing some great capital works. Some of the oh, well, these are the significant achievements. Is it worth reading them all out? Oh, you reckon? Okay. We've completed the Barnawatha cricket nets, completion and opening of the Beechworth Courthouse Kelly Trials experience, commenced the relining of the Beechworth pool, well, that's finished, completed the installation of 7 EV charging stations at council facilities, continued the ongoing replacement of our motor vehicle fleet, continued the ongoing program of heavy plant replacement. We've done key technology and telecommunication projects, commenced work on the Indigo Creek Road Bridge, progressed development of the Rutherglen Loops shared trail, which is nearly ending really, finalised the Tratton Street Waganya shared path, completed construction of the Peach Drive Beechworth shared path, completed the final section of the Beechworth to Yakaneta rail trail, finalised the construction of curb and channel to Knott Street Rutherglen, major road patching of 378,000, roads resealing program of 554,000, gravel road resheeting of 660,000, Kibble Lane upgrade works 305,000, urban drainage improvement, Kiwa River land access, which I think you'd be pretty excited about, Councillor Croucher. Good. The Tangam Active Park shade sale, finish up the upgrade to the Chiltern Caravan Park amenities block, construct the Rutherglen skate park extension, completed a number of urban road sealing upgrades, progressed the Chiltern tennis courts upgrade, commenced Barmutha Park lighting upgrade, constructed the Tangam and Waganya pump tracks, which I think both of them are running hot with people at them, kids at them all the time. Kaganya Hall upgrade, which we'll be celebrating in another week or so. So what a huge list, and that's just 1 year. So that's that's the finalisation, yes, of that 1 year. So congratulations to us and to the team.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. There's not a whole lot more to say. I think it is, again, a fantastic achievement over 12 months to bring to fruition so many projects. I think particularly in the light of the procurement difficulties that we face, not just in our shire, but in this region. So to be able to secure contractors where needed and have the expertise in-house to manage the projects has been excellent. I think it does reflect really strongly on our competitive tendering processes and that they are delivering for council and for the community. And I think that's evidenced by the delivery of this body of works within this budget. So I actually commend the council officers for the work that they have done in actually pulling off some pretty extraordinary projects, and also for organising to have a relatively dry winter that didn't hold up works too much.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Before I go back to Councillor Shepherd, I'd just like to echo some of what has already been said. I think in times with rising costs, with lots of different neighbouring councils struggling to get project managers and attracting and retaining high quality staff. I think that's not a problem we've got here at the moment. We've got some really high quality staff that are able to attract and retain, and we're very proud of the position that they put us in to be able to deliver a report like this. They're a great touch point for our community. It's really pleasing to go along to different community groups and hear that they're absolutely always on a first name basis with whoever their project manager is, and generally very happy with who they're working alongside and in partnership with. And that's a real credit to us. And I think if ever the reputation of council is waning, it's always those staff that are at the coalface dealing with our community, that are absolutely keeping our reputation in a good space. And that's typically the project management staff and those people that help deliver the priorities of the community and deliver on these capital works. So hats off to them and thank them for their good work. And it does not go unnoticed, and we do really appreciate it. I'll go back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up?
Just to say, if I could name them, thank you to Ian Ellett, Director of Infrastructure Services, and Nathan Mullane for as Manager of Capital Works and Waste. And of course, the many project managers and staff that work under them. Thank you for your great work. It's, as you say, it really reflects well on us.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote for the 2023-24 Annual Capital Works Summary. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.4 is the July Capital Works Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council notes the July Capital Works Report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, well, the Capital Works program is really off to a good start with many excellent projects underway or completed. And I'm particularly pleased to see the Kaganya Hall upgrade completed, and the Kaganya community are delighted with the outcome.
Good on you, Councillor Croucher. Thank you. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to you, Councillor Croucher. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.5 is sale of land reserve on 15 Cordial Lane, Yakandanda. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 agrees to the intended sale of 1,107.5 square metres of reserve land valued at $47,000 that runs through 15 Cordial Lane, Yakandanda. 2 notes a public notice will be published advising of Council's intention to sell the land, and that submissions will be received from the public for a period of 28 days in relation to the proposed sale, and 3 notes that a further report will be provided to Council following the public notice period unless no objections are received, in which case officers will proceed with the formal process required for the sale of land. I have somebody to move that. Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd.
So this strip of land it was set aside as a potential future pedestrian link to access Twist Creek Road down to Bells Flat Road, and it's no longer required and is too steep to provide for a practical pathway for construction. It also inhibits development of the land beside it to its best potential. So yes, the sale of the land to the landowner of the surrounding land is supported, but it will go out for comment for the community to give feedback, and then we'll get it back to us.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Yeah, thank you. I think concurring with Councillor Shepherd, it is a small strip of land. Its intent when it was first developed or on the subdivision when it was first allocated hasn't proven to be of value as any sort of throughway and has no other purpose as far as we're aware. It would seem to be a good idea to sell that land to a neighbour and allow that neighbour to maximise the use of that property. However, it's important that we go to community and just test our assumptions on that. And I think this is a very good process by which to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.6, Councillor Shepherd.
I declare a material conflict of interest with 13.6 as a close family member has submitted an expression of interest in relation to the proposed lease for the Beechworth Plate Layers Cottage. So I will leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. We will invite you in at the completion of this item. Item 13.6 is the proposed leasing of former Beechworth Railway Station and Beechworth Plate Layers Cottage. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 offers a 5-year lease to U3A Indigo for the use of the former Beechworth Railway Station building at a peppercorn rental amount of $1 per annum. 2 offers a 5-year lease to the Lions Club of Beechworth Inc. for the use of the Beechworth Platelayers Cottage building at a peppercorn rental amount of $1 per annum. 3 notes that both of the buildings are on Crown land, that the leases will require Crown consent, and 4 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute the lease documents. Can I have someone to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
The railway station and U3A just seem like hand and glove. I've been to a couple of functions there. The crowd who are in, and I was told the exact amount, but I know it's well over 100 members, and they come from right across the Shire. It's good to see a government building like that being utilised. All different age groups, really good. They've had a lot of tenants, but they keep the place spick and span. The Platelayers Cottage, if that's not a story, which is one that they've put in their own money, they've repaid their own money, they've got the prisoners that even during COVID to come out and clean up the site, and we couldn't get them out ourselves, but we tried. But the Lions have really put their heart and soul into that. I'm not being facetious, but there's a few Lions clubs that have been given council buildings. But the Beechworth Lions are doing a great job, and they're very deserving of that.
Councillor Crouch, would you like to speak a second?
Yes, look, I'd like to endorse everything that Councillor Gaffney said. I'm very pleased to see both the former Beechworth Railway Station building and the Platelayers Cottage have been through an expression of interest process, resulting in U3A Indigo awarded occupancy of the former railway station, and the Lions Club of Beechworth being awarded occupancy of the Platelayers Cottage. I'm particularly pleased for the Lions Club of Beechworth, who I know have substantially funded the major renovations of that particular cottage.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
Yes, I'd just like to say that both of these groups take a great deal of pride in not only their organisations, but also the accommodation that they are housed in. And I think this is a wonderful outcome for both groups and for the community in general.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I'd just like to talk about the process. This has gone out very similar to what the process is going to be for 12.3, another item which is on our agenda for tonight. And I'd like to say that I'm very pleased that the groups that have put in so far to these particular buildings and have been recognised by the communities abroad and at home have been through the process and seen that the council processes are working and that there is a really good ending to them. Thank you.
Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. I think, again, just wanting to reiterate that the EOI process in this instance was very well considered and discussed before it did go out to public. It demonstrates an open and transparent process. It does demonstrate the opportunity for not only potential tenants, but also the community to indicate their satisfaction with a council asset, and in this case facilities, to be utilised for community benefit. So not asking for an economic return, we're looking at the quality of the tenants and what they bring to community, and in this instance having the existing tenants with a really strong history of their contribution, not just to community, but what they have done on site, and the amount of fundraising that has gone into making Platelayers Cottage actually habitable is quite extraordinary. So again, really commend what these two organisations have done to date, and very pleased that they are the successful applicants.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Could we please get Councillor Shepherd back into the room? Item 13.7 is the climate change policy review. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the climate change policy for 2024. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
So this has come to us before, and then went out to the community. No submissions were received during the public exhibition period, but at our asking, it went back to the Environment Advisory Committee for their endorsement, and they have gone through this and recommended some changes. Mainly those changes were to strengthen the leadership and modelling by council to the community. And they're happy with this, and I think it's great that we've had it reviewed and that we are now embedding this policy within our whole council staff and community. So I really endorse that and thank the Environment Committee for spending the time in having a separate committee meeting to sit and discuss this particular policy. So thank you very much. I think it is strengthened by your input.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, I'd just like to endorse Councillor Shepherd's remarks regarding the Environment Committee. They're very highly valued within our Shire, and the work that they do is outstanding. And I'd just like to say that this is a part of our ongoing commitment to the environment and to climate change, and that the policy will be reviewed again in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? I suppose I'd just like to say, I think these policies are really important, and it's really important that we have really effective staff within council to put these policies in place and to work to them and work with these policies. But I think that it's really important that these policies, again, similarly to the tourism strategy, meet the appetite of our community. And in terms of climate change policy and all of the work in that space, we are chasing our community, is normally what happens in Indigo Shire. There's lots of people out there taking the lead, and I think that it's really appropriate for us to continue to chase the community and to set ourselves really ambitious targets with climate change policy as well, and that is absolutely guided by the Environment Advisory Committee, as mentioned by some of the other councillors, and lots of the other linkages that we have with totally renewable groups within the Shire, and with other community groups that are trying to address their own footprint in terms of climate change. So it's great to see this policy come through for review, and I hope that we can adopt this tonight. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I'll go back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up?
This is a big responsibility for us to show leadership and model good behaviour with climate change policy. As we are already aware that we already experiencing increases in temperature, frequency and intensity of heat waves, floods, hazardous fire weather and drought conditions. And as the Hume Regional Climate Change Adaptation Strategy 2021 acknowledges the need to ensure our communities are informed, empowered to make transformational change and resilient in the face of climate change. This includes planning for the challenges and opportunities created by a changing climate, as outlined in the North East Regional Catchment Strategy. So it is very much our job to ensure that we are working with our community at being able to adapt and mitigate for what is already a changing climate.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management and item 14.1 is the report on the implementation of the council plan 2023-24. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached report to the community detailing the implementation of the council plan for the 2023-24 year. Do I have somebody to move that, please? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, it's been another good year for Indigo Shire Council and the staff and for the communities, with a high number of projects completed at 96 or 97%. We've had a very challenging year, but we've also had a very rewarding year, and that many of these projects will benefit the communities going forward for generations, if not longer. Thank you.
Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak?
This was just a fantastic result with over 95% achieved. That's all I really need to say. Congratulations. Just a fantastic year and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is the Advocacy Action Plan 2021 through to 2025 Year 4. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council endorses the updated Advocacy Action Plan 2021 to 2025 for Year 4. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
So we're only a small rural council, and really to get things done, we often have to work in partnership with and advocate to a range of stakeholders and all levels of government to deliver on community expectations and priorities. So this council advocacy plan is a document that I think is probably burned into the mayor and CEO's brain. Is it like? Here it is as you know, a 4 or 5 page document, but I think it's something you wear close to your heart. And these are the sort of more critical ones that are on the list at the moment. The ambulance response times, code 1, access to quality health care, including a new single site hospital servicing the region, Build Back Better, in terms of our infrastructure, emergency management, specifically response and recovery, climate change mitigation, housing crisis, connectivity, including lack of public transport and mobile internet access, investment in essential water and sewer infrastructure to enable residential growth, and retention of police stations and police presence in small towns. Now, of course, that's just a small list. There's things that come up all the time that we have to speak to ministers or state government or whomever about, and I think it's constantly changing, isn't it? And thank you for the communications department for keeping this to be a very fluid document.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Yeah, just endorse what Councillor Shepherd's had to say, but also noting that within our top 10 things that we advocate for is access to childcare and kindergarten services. It seems to be a bit of a theme for tonight.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I suppose probably on behalf of myself and the CEO, we're trying to find every opportunity to raise all of these different things on behalf of our community. And I think we've found many opportunities this year to do exactly that, whether it's through our participation in different advocacy committees, whether it's Rural Councils Victoria, the Hume Region Local Government Network, all of those different peak bodies where we can go to directly and leverage the connections that they have and collaborate with other similar councils, whether it's directly advocating to ministers at federal and state level, whether it's partnering with our local councils as we do with a number of memorandums of understanding or partnerships, and really seeking every opportunity. And I did say recently with regard to the health services, I think that at the moment we're seeing the best collaboration from our communities in the region that we've seen in a long time. And I think it is out of need on lots of these different issues. So I think look out, to any state or federal government who may want to talk to us about what our community needs, because we come well armed, we come in a very collaborative sense, and we know exactly what our communities want, and they're really clear to us, and that's why we have advocacy action plans such as this, and we'll continue to enact those year after year. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is an update for Section 6, Instrument of Delegation, Members of Staff. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 delegates to the members of Council staff holding, acting in or performing the duties of the positions referred to in the attached Instrument of Delegation to members of Council staff the powers, duties and functions set out in that instrument, subject to the conditions and limitations specified in that instrument. 2, notes that the delegations come into force immediately upon this resolution being made. 3, revokes all previous delegations to members of staff under this instrument. And 4, notes that the duties and functions set out in the instrument must be performed and the powers set out in the instrument must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that it may from time to time adopt. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tice or Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very important that when senior members of staff go on leave or they go on carers leave or some other leave, that there's somebody ready to take their place. And the best way of doing that is to have those under them have the capabilities of taking over when the need is done. It's been seen a lot recently with monitoring that managers are going up and taking mentoring from their director or the CEO or senior members of staff, and it's working quite well, but it's got to be there ready for action, and that's what this does.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson, do you wish to speak as seconder? Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
I'd just like to just build on what Councillor Gaffney has talked about. Having the delegations allows council to run smoothly and to continue to operate within the legislative framework without that being a rushed decisional process in the absence of any one member. I think what's also really important and what we've seen is that by people within council understanding the roles that they may be able to step into in a incumbent's absence, that a mentoring and preparation for those roles is incredibly valuable. And I think that has lent a lot of strength to particularly our senior executives and directors. The opportunity to prepare for assuming a delegation pays really strong dividends for council in the absence of our senior staff.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
So there are new provisions in the Food Act and the residential tenancies, caravan park and movable dwellings registrations and standards, regulations 2024, and they replace the 2020 regulations. And this update now really ensures that the legislative powers, duties and functions can be undertaken by the delegates, the people who are named in this document. So it really is an official document really to ensure that the powers are named and the right people are doing them.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Gaffney. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees: the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee and the Indigo Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
Just to note that the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee, the recommendation from them was to support the adoption of the updated climate change policy. So we have endorsed and their recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Gaffney? No. Councillor Gold? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for July 2024. The item is for information. The following contracts were awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of $250,000 and $500,000 for the month of July 2024. There's 3 listed there in the agenda. I don't intend to read them out. Item 14.7 is the appointment of internal audit services provider. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 appoints the partners DB Bowen, Findex Oz Proprietary Limited, AJ Blakemore, JJ Gilbert, DN McKenzie and DM Monday trading as Crowe Albury as internal auditors for the period the 1st of September 2024 to the 30th of June 2027 for the contract price of $127,875 with the option of additional audits to be conducted at $125 per hour for Crowe internal audit staff and $450 per hour for specialists subject to approval of the internal audit program. 2, authorises the CEO to sign the contract documents, and 3, authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations of 10% of the final contract value. To have somebody to move that. Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney?
Crowe have been around for quite some time. They used to be called Crowe Horvath. They've worked for the Auditor General on a number of occasions. They've acted as an external auditor for Indigo Shire, and they're very experienced, and they certainly know the system here, and they've got a really good group to work with.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak as seconder?
The audit committee has endorsed this recommendation, and I really trust their process and their skill and expertise. So happy to formally appoint them as internal audit contractors.
Thank you for those kind words, councillor.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to councillor Gaffney. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 15 is notices of motion. There are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Would any councillor like to make a report to the meeting? Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary for July 2024. Thank you. Item 17 is the Decisions Register. That's for information. Item 18 is general business. Do any councillors have any general business for the council meeting? Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I have a couple of items. Council's received an email from Middle Indigo Primary School who'd like us to investigate the speed zone at the front of their school, as they've had several near misses and incidents over the last year or months. And I was wondering if the CEO would like to advocate for that.
CEO Trevor Areno.
No problem with doing that. We've got some processes in place at the moment that are following up on that line in any case. So happy to take that on board, councillor.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Another one?
One more question, another one involving roads. So the road, I think it's to the west of Rutherglen on the Murray Valley Highway, heading towards Federation Way, is in a quite bad state of disrepair and has been so for a lengthy period of time, and with multiple variations in speed occurring there over the last 12 months, like between 80 and 40, depending on the size of the holes. I was wondering whether or not through the CEO we could inquire as to when this may be repaired from the Department of Transport.
Thank you, councillor. Well aware of that section and have the same frustration. I'm happy to write to Department of Transport to see if I can update on what the timing of those works are.
Thank you, councillor Tice or councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On Monday, yesterday, the Mayor and the Director of Infrastructure and I attended a policing meeting in the Beechworth Memorial Hall. That was 100% about traffic. There would have been at least 20 to 30 police officers present. Went for a couple of hours. They did raise a couple of things, and I was pleased that they raised the $10,000 that's been set aside for CCTV cameras. And they were wondering about, and I introduced the acting senior sergeant to Ian, and I was just wondering whether there could be some liaison between the local police area command and the Shire, because different matters were brought up concerning speeding cars and hoons and things, and it'd be good if they could have some access to those, particularly traffic matters. It was a very good forum. It was good to see the director there, and I'd also like to thank the director for coming to the Chiltern Athenaeum AGM. It didn't get argy-bargy. There was a possibility of it happening, but Ian was ready and had an answer to all of their questions. So I'd like to thank him for that as well.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Does any other councillor have anything for general business for the meeting? I just think it's important to report back to the council formally about the tri-council meeting. We met with Alpine and Towong to put forward a motion on behalf of the three councils. Indigo Shire Council was represented by councillor Shepherd, councillor Gold and myself, and councillor Horn was also in attendance with a number of other councillors putting in their apologies or attending other events. It was the meeting went really well. It was, again, another example of great collaboration between three small councils. We received some really good media attention, noting that another three councils had joined the fight for our hospital. And I think it's really pleasing to see that this campaign just continues to ramp up more and more. And again, just thank you, I suppose, to the CEOs, in particular from our Alpine, Towong, and our own CEO at Indigo, and the acting CEOs during the time of the CEO's leave, for putting that meeting together. It was a really strong show of support for health services and for health workers within our community, and we continue to keep the Albury-Wodonga Health as an advocacy item on our agenda and progress it at every stage. Do any other councillors have any general business for the meeting? If not, I will declare the meeting closed at 9:15 p.m. And the next scheduled council meeting is Tuesday, the 16th of September, 2024 sorry, that is correct. So can I just double check? That's Monday, the 16th. And the 16th is correct? Monday, the 16th of September, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Good night.